Yeah, it's part of capitalism, but it's not regenerative capitalism. So to come back to your point, it's not about S falling off the end. Everything should start with S. It's the most difficult for investors. It's the most difficult for companies. It's the most difficult for everybody to get right. And again, the point in terms of the S is that the S apps, the three issues, it's never E and S and G, it's ESG, it's a block. My metaphor now.
The term ESG, as you said, it was actually a different term or a different order of terms, but the S was placed in the middle for a reason, as I understand it, because it was never just about policies. It really also was, as you mentioned here today, about bringing that human side back into business. So can you tell us why the social element is at the heart of ESG and also how it connects to governance as our moral compass?
Yeah, and look, I'll sort of put my former UN hat on in that. And you mustn't forget where ESG came from. It did come from the UN, right? And Michael sort of slightly misrepresented me before when he said that we put S in the middle to stop it falling off the end. It was to protect it. And it was to protect it as the most important part of the ESG, tripartite arrangement. Right? And that really stems from what we were looking to do in the UN was speak to mainstream capital and deep pools of capital, right? And change their culture. So it's the asset owners, the pension funds, the sovereign wealth funds. And for us, you cannot disconnect these issues on a planet where the nature of risk is changing. All our risk sets from the past 2 centuries, past 50 years are changing, right? Yeah. You can't look in the rearview mirror. And the social piece in terms of, the population is 8.9 billion now, 10 billion by the end of the century. Africa will be the only continent growing after 2050. It's 1.4 billion now, will be 4 billion, right? The social piece, inequality, and taking down from systemic risks to workers' rights, the very brutal end of neoliberal capitalism, the 0-hour contracts, the ability just to take workers and dismiss them. Yeah, it's part of capitalism, but it's not regenerative capitalism. So to come back to your point, it's not about S falling off the end. Everything should start with S. It's the most difficult for investors. It's the most difficult for companies. It's the most difficult for everybody to get right. And again, the point in terms of the S is that the S apps, the three issues, it's never E and S and G, it's ESG, it's a block. My metaphor now is a Rubik's Cube, right? And it doesn't matter how you shift it, what the letters are, right? It's all interconnected. And we know that at a systemic level, we know it at a corporate level. Bad governance will slash retention, get your just transition wrong, and your coal mining community in Poland is, on the dole, not making solar panels. I'm being simpler. I'm simplifying, but yeah, S absolutely critical. Lizzy, back to you.
No, that's great. It's all I love listening to you because I can really resonate with what you're saying. And one of the things that I run into when I speak with companies and when I'm in leadership teams is to create that holistic worldview in how you address problems. And it's quite tricky because indeed everything is connected. So where do you start? How do you do this as a leadership team? Do you have any advice?
Yeah, look, in terms of whether it's investors, it's the board. It goes back to ESG was about shifting culture. It wasn't about drop-down menus, and that's why it wasn't particularly defined. And it's different for all the different regions, right? But it's about culture. In terms of the culture of your board, or the cultural bridge between your key investors and the board and the entity, it's about shaping the way a company is, and that's why culture is so important. If you do not align to a reasonable degree with flexibility, corporate values from the top down throughout every facet of the company, and it's very, very hard to do, but it is that culture will, the old thing is culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? So for us, planting the ESG side inside asset owners, the investment chain, was to send signals to the corporates and the investee corporates that, ask that question. In a changing planet, where the nature of risk is changing and mobilizing and converging. So at my company, the Blended Capital Group, we call it complex converging systemic risk. Once you begin to understand that, you begin to unlock new value in investment opportunities and product opportunities. But the only thing that allows you to help that is having a culture which is open, diverse, understanding that the nature of risk is completely changing, and we have to adjust to that. So, there are big questions, but they can be delivered in small actions. And let me finish with this point. A company board, whether public or private, has got to have a narrative that it can defend in difficult political times. And we always say, actually, capitalism is very simple, and ESG applies to that. Is it a risk? Yes or no? If no, move on. Is it a risk? Yes or no? If it is, and you don't deal with it, what does that mean for your fiduciary duty? So it's a culture that can be open to dealing with new types of risk, to understand where the new opportunities are. Sorry, I sound like a stuck record, but Lizzy, that's where it comes.